Alaric I, often referred to as Alaric the Bold, was a Gothic king and military leader whose actions in the late 4th and early 5th centuries profoundly affected the Roman Empire. As the first king of the Visigoths, he is best known for leading the sack of Rome in 410 AD, a pivotal event that symbolized the decline of the Western Roman Empire. Alaric's life and leadership represent a complex interplay between ambition, adaptability, and the inexorable forces that reshaped Europe during the waning days of Roman dominance. Alaric was born around 370 AD into the Balti dynasty, a noble Gothic lineage. His early years coincided with turbulent times for the Goths and the Roman Empire. The migration of the Huns into Eastern Europe forced the Visigoths to seek refuge within the borders of the Roman Empire in 376 AD. Although they were allowed to settle in the empire, tensions between the two groups soon erupted into violence, culminating in the Gothic victory at the Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD. This battle marked a turning point, revealing the empire's vulnerability to barbarian forces. Alaric likely grew up during this period of upheaval, witnessing firsthand the struggles of his people under Roman rule. He entered military service as a commander in the Roman army, leading a group of Gothic auxiliaries. This experience gave him valuable insight into Roman military strategy and politics, which he would later use to his advantage. By 395 AD, Alaric had risen to prominence among the Visigoths and was proclaimed their king. His ascension marked the beginning of his campaign to secure a stable homeland for his people. Alaric's leadership was defined by his fraught relationship with the Roman Empire. His primary goal was to find a permanent settlement for the Visigoths within the empire's borders, but his efforts were repeatedly thwarted by Roman authorities. After being denied fair treatment and recognition, Alaric turned to military action, leading his forces into Roman territories. In 395 AD, shortly after the death of Emperor Theodosius I, Alaric launched his first campaign into Greece, sacking cities such as Athens and Corinth. These raids were not mere acts of plunder, but part of Alaric's broader strategy to pressure Rome into negotiations. Despite initial successes, Alaric was unable to secure a lasting settlement for his people, as Roman leaders either dismissed his demands or sought to defeat him militarily. Alaric's interactions with the Roman generals of the time, particularly Stilicho, further complicated matters. Stilicho, a skilled commander and regent for the young Emperor Honorius, initially sought to use Alaric and his forces as allies against other threats to the empire. However, mutual distrust and shifting political dynamics led to repeated clashes between the two. Stilicho's death in 408 AD removed a key figure who might have mediated between Alaric and the Roman government, paving the way for further hostilities. By 410 AD, Alaric had grown increasingly frustrated with Roman intransigence. After years of failed negotiations and military stalemates, he turned his sights on the city of Rome itself. Alaric's army besieged the city 3 times, each siege exerting immense pressure on the Roman leadership. The first 2 sieges ended in ransom payments, but the third culminated in the infamous sack of Rome in August 410 AD. The sack of Rome was a watershed moment in European history. Although Alaric's forces spared many churches and avoided wanton destruction, the psychological impact of the event was profound. Rome, once considered the inviolable heart of the empire, had been humbled by a barbarian king. The event shocked the Roman world and is often cited as a key milestone in the empire's decline. Alaric's motivations for sacking Rome were complex, far from acting out of sheer malice. He sought to compel the Roman government to grant the Visigoths land and resources. The sack was a means to an end, not an end in itself. Nevertheless, it underscored the empire's inability to defend its core territories and maintain control over its borders. Alaric's life was cut short not long after the sack of Rome. In late 410 AD, while planning an expedition to North Africa, he died unexpectedly in southern Italy. According to legend, Alaric was buried in a riverbed along with a hoard of treasure, and the laborers who carried out the burial were killed to keep the location a secret. Although the truth of this story is uncertain, it adds to the mystique surrounding his legacy. Despite his early death, Alaric left an indelible mark on history. His actions highlighted the shifting balance of power between Rome and the so-called barbarian peoples. The Visigoths, under Alaric's successors, eventually secured a permanent homeland in southwestern Gaul, establishing the Visigothic kingdom. This kingdom became one of the many successor states that emerged from the remnants of the Western Roman Empire. Alaric's career exemplified the challenges faced by the late Roman Empire. His repeated incursions exposed the empire's inability to integrate or effectively manage the various barbarian groups within its borders. The Roman policy of relying on barbarian auxiliaries, while initially pragmatic, ultimately undermined the empire's cohesion and military effectiveness. Alaric's sack of Rome symbolized the culmination of these systemic weaknesses. At the same time, Alaric's legacy reflects the complexities of cultural and political interactions between Romans and barbarians. Far from being a simple destroyer, he sought to negotiate and coexist with the Roman world. His efforts to secure a homeland for the Visigoths were driven by pragmatic concerns rather than ideological opposition to Rome. In this sense, Alaric's life underscores the blurred lines between Roman and barbarian identities in late antiquity. The sack of Rome also had far-reaching cultural and psychological consequences. For centuries, Rome had been synonymous with order, civilization, and invincibility. Its fall to Alaric's forces shattered this image and signaled a broader transformation in the Mediterranean world. While the Eastern Roman Empire, centered in Constantinople, would endure for another 1,000 years, the Western Empire continued to fragment, ultimately collapsing in 476 AD. Alaric the Bold was a figure of both destruction and transition. His life and actions reflected the broader dynamics of a world in flux, where the boundaries between Roman and barbarian were increasingly blurred. Through his military campaigns and the sack of Rome, he played a pivotal role in shaping the course of late antiquity. While often remembered as a conqueror, Alaric was also a statesman and a leader who sought to secure a future for his people in a collapsing world. The legacy of Alaric and the Visigoths reminds us that the fall of the Western Roman Empire was not simply a story of decline and destruction, but also one of transformation and adaptation. The world that emerged from Rome's ashes bore the imprint of leaders like Alaric, whose boldness and vision helped shape the foundations of medieval Europe.